No, sweetheart, you're mistaken.
But that's the man in your picture.
We should head out now, sweetie.
Mommy, he has the same eyes as me.
4 years earlier, Naomi Bennett disappeared from her husband's life without taking the diamonds, the money, or even her favorite coat. She took only one suitcase, and a secret she had discovered that very morning. By sunset, the most powerful man in Seoul was searching for his wife. By midnight, every airport, hotel, train station, and private terminal his money could reach had been checked. But Naomi was gone, and Seo Do-jun had no idea that when she left him, she wasn't leaving alone. The first thing Do-jun noticed was her wedding ring. It sat in the center of their bed on top of a blank sheet of paper. That morning, Naomi had accused him of shutting her out. She said she felt more like a guest in his life than his wife. Do-jun had been late for a meeting. His phone had been ringing. And instead of listening, he had picked up his briefcase. "I don't have time for this today." Those were the last words he had spoken to his wife. Now half her clothes were gone. Her passport was missing. But her phone, credit cards, and wedding ring were still there. Do-jun called her phone. It rang 3 feet away. That was when fear replaced anger. He called his head of security. "Find my wife." Everyone assumed Naomi needed space. Do-jun knew better. She had left without her phone or money. And the woman who packed 3 bags for a 2-day trip had disappeared with one small suitcase. By midnight, Do-jun was no longer asking people to search. He was ordering them. Airports, train stations, hotels, hospitals, private terminals. There was nothing. No plane ticket, no reservation, no purchase, no message, no goodbye. For 72 hours, Do-jun did not sleep. On the 4th day, his security team found a grainy recording from a bus terminal outside Seoul. A woman in a dark coat and sunglasses had arrived alone and bought a ticket with cash. The camera captured her face for less than 2 seconds. Do-jun watched those 2 seconds 17 times. It was Naomi. No one had dragged her there. No one had forced her onto the bus. She had walked in alone. Everyone accepted the footage as proof. Naomi had chosen to leave her husband. Do-jun refused to believe it. For 6 months, he searched openly. For another year, investigators searched quietly. London, Paris, New York, Cape Town. Every lead ended the same way. Wrong woman, wrong name, wrong hope. By the 4th year, the world believed Seo Do-jun had moved on. The world was wrong. At 35, Do-jun was wealthier than ever. His company owned luxury hotels, private hospitals, office towers, and property across Seoul. Business magazines called him disciplined. His competitors called him ruthless. People who had known him before Naomi disappeared used a different word: empty. He woke at 5 every morning and worked until midnight. He had never remarried, never seriously dated, and Naomi's side of the closet remained almost untouched. Her favorite winter coat still hung inside. That coat had never made sense. Naomi loved it. She had once made him drive 40 minutes back to a restaurant because she had forgotten it. Yet on the day she supposedly planned to leave him forever, she had left it behind. Then, on a cold Tuesday afternoon, one small mistake changed everything. His driver used the wrong entrance to one of Do-jun's own buildings. Do-jun entered the private lobby and stepped into the elevator alone. A few seconds later, the doors opened, and 4 years of unanswered questions stood in front of him. The little girl, the pointing finger, the impossible words, and the woman beside her, Naomi. For 4 years, Do-jun had imagined finding his wife. He had imagined shouting, demanding answers, walking past her as if she meant nothing. But now that she stood in front of him, he could not move. She was alive, older by 4 years, but unmistakably Naomi. And beside her stood a little girl. The child looked about 3. Warm light brown skin, soft dark curls, Naomi's mouth, Naomi's cheeks, and Do-jun's eyes. Naomi took the child's hand and tried to leave. Then the girl turned back. She had already said he was the man in her mother's picture. Now she looked between him and Naomi. "Mommy, he looks like me." Naomi stopped walking. 4 years since his wife disappeared. A little girl who looked 3. A photograph Naomi had kept, and eyes Do-jun had seen in the mirror every morning of his life. Naomi. She flinched, but did not turn around. For 4 years, he had imagined the questions he would ask. Why did you leave? Where did you go? Why did you never call? None of them mattered now. Do-jun looked at the child, then at Naomi. Is she mine? Naomi closed her eyes. She did not answer. She did not need to. Do-jun understood. He had a daughter. While he had been searching for Naomi, a child had been born. She had taken her first breath without him, spoken her first word without him, taken her first step without him, and he had missed all of it. Not because he chose to leave, because he never knew she existed. The little girl moved closer to Naomi. Do-jun watched Naomi position herself protectively beside the child, as if she did not know what he might do. Then the little girl looked up at him. He looked sad. Do-jun turned his face away. No business rival had ever made him feel powerless. But one sentence from a child he had known for less than a minute nearly broke him. Then Naomi's phone rang. She looked at the screen. The color disappeared from her face. Her eyes moved toward the glass entrance, then across the lobby, then back to the phone. The call stopped. A second later, it came again. Same number. Naomi rejected it. And Do-jun finally understood something he should have recognized 4 years ago. Naomi was not behaving like a woman hiding from an angry ex-husband. She was behaving like a woman who believed someone was watching her. She took her daughter's hand and left. This time, Do-jun did not stop them. He watched Naomi hurry into a taxi. Just before the car pulled away, she looked back. Their eyes met. For 1 second, Do-jun saw the woman he remembered. Not cold, not cruel, afraid. Then the taxi disappeared into Seoul traffic. Do-jun took out his phone. His head of security answered immediately. Sir? Find out where Naomi has been for the last 4 years. There was a stunned silence. And find out who just called her. He ended the call. 4 years ago, Naomi disappeared. Everyone believed she had chosen to leave. The security footage seemed to prove it. The abandoned wedding ring seemed to prove it. But now she was back, with a daughter Do-jun never knew existed. And someone was still frightening her. For the first time in 4 years, Seo Do-jun asked himself the question that changed everything. What if Naomi had never been running away from him? What if she had been running from someone else? Before we continue, if you're already curious about the secret Naomi has been hiding and what little Mina means to Do-jun, subscribe and stay with us until the end. For the next 6 hours, Seo Do-jun learned almost nothing. That frightened him more than if his investigators had found too much. Naomi had disappeared from Seoul 4 years earlier. For 8 months, there was no trace of her. Then she appeared in Busan under her maiden name, working as a translator. 3 years and 3 months earlier, she had given birth to a daughter, Naomi Bennett. Do-jun stared at the date. Naomi had been pregnant when she disappeared. For 4 years, he had asked why his wife left. Now he wondered if she had carried his child without telling him. There was more. Naomi and Mina had returned to Seoul 6 weeks earlier. Naomi had taken a temporary translation job inside the office tower Do-jun's company had recently purchased. 4 years of searching had failed. A wrong entrance had found her in seconds. No father was listed on Mina's birth certificate. And the unknown number Naomi rejected in the lobby had called her 9 times in 2 weeks. Someone knew she was back, and Naomi was afraid. The next morning, Do-jun went to her apartment himself. He stood outside her door before finally knocking. Naomi opened it. You found us. I spent 4 years finding nothing. Then a child laughed inside the apartment. Mina. Naomi stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind her. Does she know? Naomi shook her head. Mina did not know who he was. But Naomi had kept one photograph of Do-jun. Mina had found it. That was why she recognized him. Why? He was asking about everything. The disappearance, the pregnancy, the years. Naomi told him she discovered she was pregnant the morning she vanished. She had planned to tell him that evening. Their marriage was already falling apart. Do-jun worked constantly, and Naomi felt his company mattered more than their life together. She thought the baby might remind them they were still building something. Then she found a file. Inside were financial documents carrying Do-jun's signature. Millions in transfers, unknown companies, foreign accounts. Naomi photographed the pages and called the only man she believed could explain them, Han Seok-won. Do-jun went still, his closest friend, the man who had stood beside him since university, the man who had helped search for Naomi. Seok-won had arrived at the penthouse carrying photographs. Do-jun leaving his office, Naomi shopping, Naomi at a clinic. Then he showed her a record of her pregnancy test. He knew. Before Do-jun did, Naomi was given a choice. Disappear, or the financial records would destroy Do-jun. If she warned him, their unborn child would be harmed. Do-jun stared at her. A man he trusted had threatened his wife and child, then spent 4 years helping him search for them. Naomi had tried to warn Do-jun. Someone else answered his private phone. Her email was deleted before he saw it. Then she received a photograph of Do-jun taken minutes earlier. They were close enough to reach him. So she ran. You should have trusted me. Naomi's fear turned to anger. She reminded him of their final months. He stopped telling her where he went. He took calls in rooms she could not enter. He trusted Seok-won with secrets he never shared with his wife. When she asked questions, he told her not to worry. When she felt alone, he said he was busy. And the morning she needed him most, he told her he did not have time for her. Do-jun said nothing. Every word was true. Naomi had not run because she stopped loving him. She ran because the people around him knew more about his life than she did. Then the apartment door opened. Mina appeared holding a stuffed rabbit. She saw Naomi's tears and looked suspiciously at Do-jun. Did you make mommy sad? No. Mina studied him. Do-jun noticed her rabbit's repaired ear, her mismatched socks. One yellow, one blue. Those tiny details affected him more than the birth certificate. His daughter had an entire life, and he knew nothing about it. Who are you? Do-jun looked at Naomi. The decision belonged to her. Naomi crouched beside Mina and told her Do-jun was someone who had once been very important to her. The picture man? Naomi nodded. Mina walked toward the apartment, then turned back. Your eyes are still like mine. Naomi agreed to a paternity test. 2 days later, the result arrived. 99.99%. Seo Do-jun was Mina's father. He expected anger. Instead, he felt grief. 3 birthdays, 3 Christmases, first words, first steps, an entire beginning he had missed. That evening, Do-jun returned to Naomi's apartment. He brought nothing. No expensive toys, no gifts, no lawyers. Mina was drawing on the floor. Naomi had told her the picture man was her father. Mina stared at him. If you're my daddy, where were you? Do-jun could have blamed Naomi. He could have blamed Seok-won. But Mina was 3. She needed an answer, not a defense. I didn't know where to find you. Did you look? Everywhere. Mina thought about it. Then she pushed a blue crayon toward him. Do-jun picked it up. He had signed billion-dollar contracts without his hand shaking. It shook now. For 20 minutes, father and daughter drew together. Naomi watched from the kitchen. She told herself it changed nothing. Seok-won was still out there. Someone was still calling her. The danger had not disappeared. Then Mina laughed at something Do-jun drew. Do-jun laughed too. Quiet, unexpected, real. For one dangerous second, Naomi remembered the man she had married. Then her phone vibrated. A message from the unknown number. No words. Only a photograph taken through the apartment window. Do-jun was sitting on the floor. Mina beside him. The timestamp was less than 1 minute old. Someone was watching them. Naomi's hand trembled. Do-jun saw her face and stood. She turned the phone toward him. He looked at the photograph, then slowly toward the dark window. 4 years ago, someone had threatened his wife and unborn daughter. Now they knew he had found them. And this time, Seo Do-jun was not going to let Naomi disappear. Do-jun closed the curtains and called his head of security. Within an hour, they found where the photograph had been taken. An empty apartment across the road. Whoever had been watching was gone. All they left behind was a chair facing Naomi's window and a disposable phone. Back in the apartment, Mina slept against Naomi's shoulder. Do-jun looked at his daughter. For years he had been angry that Naomi never came to him. Now he understood. 4 years ago, she had been pregnant, frightened, and unsure whom she could trust. Fear had made every door look dangerous, even his. Do-jun wanted them moved immediately. Naomi refused. She had spent 4 years running. She would not do it again. He reminded her that someone had photographed their daughter through a window. Naomi reminded him that his answer to everything was still the same. Take control. Give orders. Decide for everyone else. Do-jun could have argued. Instead, he asked, "What would make you feel safe?" Naomi stared at him. 4 years ago, he would have decided for her. Now he was asking. She agreed to leave, but not for his mansion. Not yet. She chose a private residence attached to one of his hotels. With its own entrance and security, she could question herself. Do-jun agreed. By midnight, Naomi and Mina were moved. Do-jun stayed 3 floors below. For the first time in 4 years, his wife and daughter were under the same roof. He did not sleep. The next morning, Mina found him alone in the hotel restaurant with coffee and a stack of reports. She climbed into the chair across from him and frowned at his breakfast. "Daddy doesn't eat?" The word reached him before the question did. "Daddy." Naomi heard it too. Do-jun remained completely still. Mina, unaware of what she had done, continued staring disapprovingly at his black coffee. So Do-jun ordered pancakes. He did not like pancakes. Mina loved them. By the end of breakfast, she had eaten half his food and covered a financial report worth hundreds of millions in syrup. Then she placed a strawberry on top. Naomi laughed. Do-jun looked up. He had forgotten that sound. Once, Naomi's laughter had filled every room they shared, before the closed doors, before the late meetings, before she stopped waiting for him to come home. Over the next few days, Do-jun learned everything 4 years had hidden from him. Mina hated peas, loved strawberries, feared thunder but not darkness, could not pronounce spaghetti, and believed every elevator belonged to Do-jun because that was where she had found him. She also could not understand why a rich man owned so few crayons. Do-jun bought her more than 200. Mina used only the blue one. Naomi watched him learn. She had expected schedules, experts, and expensive solutions. Instead, Do-jun was patient. He never touched Mina unless she came to him first. Never called himself her father unless she did. Never asked Naomi for time alone with her. It made Naomi's anger harder to hold. That frightened her. Anger had carried her through childbirth, fear, and the nights Mina was sick with no one else to call. Forgiving Do-jun felt dangerous, because part of her had never stopped loving him. Do-jun knew it too. She still remembered how he took his coffee, still noticed when he had not slept, still watched him whenever Mina called him daddy. But neither of them spoke about it. There were 4 lost years between them. And someone was still watching. The investigation into Han Seok-won continued quietly. Do-jun told no one inside the company. If Naomi was right, the man who destroyed their family still believed Do-jun trusted him. Do-jun intended to keep it that way. At work, he behaved as usual. He even allowed Seok-won to ask about Naomi's return. Seok-won played his part perfectly. Surprise, concern, sympathy. Then he asked one question too many. Was the child with her? Do-jun looked at him. No public report had mentioned Mina. No employee knew about her. The room became very quiet. Do-jun kept his expression calm. Yes. Seok-won recovered quickly. But not quickly enough. For the first time, Do-jun saw the man Naomi had feared. Not in his face. In the mistake. That evening, investigators uncovered the truth. Millions had been moved through shell companies using Do-jun's electronic authorization. The transactions were designed to make it look as though he had approved them himself. If exposed, Do-jun could have lost his company, possibly his freedom. But the money was only part of the plan. Someone had been preparing to remove him, and Han Seok-won had been positioned to take his place. Naomi had discovered the evidence too early. She had simply become a problem. Do-jun sat alone with the report. Seok-won had not only stolen money, he had stolen 4 years. 4 years of Naomi. 4 years of Naomi. 4 years of Mina. 4 years no amount of wealth could buy back. Do-jun wanted to confront him immediately. His investigators warned him to wait. If Seok-won realized they knew, he could disappear. Or do something worse. So Do-jun waited. Mina made it possible. Every evening, he returned to the hotel. One night, he found her asleep on the sofa, surrounded by crayons and paper. On the floor was a drawing. 3 figures. One with dark curls. One very small. The third unusually tall and colored blue. All 3 were holding hands. Do-jun stared at it. I missed everything. Naomi looked at Mina. Yes. Do-jun did not defend himself. Naomi's voice softened. You missed the beginning. He looked at her. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. She looked at the drawing. But it doesn't mean you have to miss the rest. Do-jun could not speak. Then Mina opened her eyes. Still half asleep, she lifted her arms and asked Do-jun to carry her to bed. He froze. So did Naomi. Do-jun carefully picked up his daughter for the first time. She rested her head against his shoulder as if she had done it 100 times. Do-jun closed his eyes. 4 years of searching. 4 years of anger. Nothing had prepared him for the weight of his daughter sleeping in his arms. Naomi watched him carry Mina toward the bedroom. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a family. Not the one they had lost. A new one. Then her phone vibrated. Another message. 5 words. You should have stayed gone. Naomi looked up. The lights went out. Darkness filled the suite. Mina woke in Do-jun's arms. Naomi heard movement outside the door. Do-jun handed Mina to her. Take her into the bedroom. Naomi did not argue. Then Do-jun's phone rang. His security chief. The hotel security system had been disabled from inside the company network. Someone with executive access had opened a private service entrance, and one name had just been recorded entering the building. Han Seok-won. Do-jun looked toward Naomi and Mina. 4 years ago, Seok-won had forced his wife to run. This time, there was nowhere left to run. And Seo Do-jun was finally waiting for him. The lights returned after 11 seconds. Do-jun stood between the door and his family. Naomi held Mina against her chest. The frightened girl stared at her father, waiting to see if he was afraid. It's okay. Do-jun did not know if that was true. But Mina believed him. Security reported that Han Seok-won had entered through a private service entrance. 2 unregistered men followed. Do-jun ordered the floor sealed. There's a secure exit behind the bedroom, he told Naomi. Security can take you and Mina downstairs. And you? I'm staying. Naomi handed Mina to a security officer. The little girl looked at Do-jun. Are you coming too? Yes. It was the first promise he had ever made his daughter. Mina was taken through the secure door. Naomi remained. You should go with her. She shook her head. For 4 years, fear had controlled her life. She was tired of running. Minutes later, Han Seok-won entered. He had stood beside Do-jun for years, through business crises and the search for Naomi, all while knowing the truth. He looked at her. You came back. Naomi felt the old fear. This time, she did not move. Do-jun stood beside her. Seok-won explained that Naomi had opened files she should never have seen and asked questions that made her dangerous. Do-jun finally understood. The man responsible had never been hiding in the shadows. He had been sitting beside him, and Seok-won had known about Mina. You knew she was pregnant. Seok-won's silence answered him. Do-jun controlled his anger. Why is she still a threat to you? Seok-won's expression changed. The financial documents Naomi discovered 4 years earlier had been altered, but she had photographed the originals, linking the transfers directly to him. Naomi thought the photographs were lost with her old phone. So did Seok-won, until she returned to Seoul. Then the calls and surveillance began. He needed to know if the evidence had returned with her. Naomi finally understood. For 4 years, she thought she was hunted because she knew too much. The truth was that Seok-won did not know what she knew. Do-jun looked at her. They already had what they needed. The entire conversation was being recorded. Seok-won realized too late. He reached inside his jacket. But security entered from both sides. The 2 men who followed him had already been detained. For the first time in 4 years, Seok-won had nowhere to go. At the door, he looked back. You would have lost everything because of her. I did. Do-jun looked at Naomi. My mistake was thinking the company was everything. Seok-won was taken away. The danger was finally over. Naomi's knees weakened. Do-jun caught her. For a moment, she resisted. Then 4 years of survival collapsed. He held her as she cried for the pregnancy she faced alone, the birth he missed, the nights she was afraid, and the years Mina grew up without him. There were no words large enough for 4 lost years. 3 days later, Seok-won's arrest became public. Investigators uncovered years of stolen money, false authorizations, shell companies, and surveillance. For the first time in 4 years, Naomi slept without checking the window. But she did not return to Do-jun's house. She and Mina went back to their apartment. Do-jun did not argue. Finding them did not mean he was entitled to have them. So he visited. First 3 evenings a week. Then 4. He learned to brush curls badly. To never skip pages during bedtime stories. To carry snacks and keep crayons in his car. Slowly, Mina stopped calling him the picture man. He became daddy. Not in one perfect moment. In small pieces. A hand she reached for crossing the street. A voice she called when thunder frightened her. A shoulder she fell asleep on. A place beside her in every drawing. Naomi watched Do-jun change too. He still worked too much. But when Mina called, meetings ended. When Naomi spoke, he listened. Months passed. Do-jun never asked Naomi to come home. He understood they could not return to their old marriage. If they loved each other again, it had to be as the people they had become. One evening, Do-jun arrived after Mina had fallen asleep. Naomi sat by the window with 2 cups of coffee. They talked about ordinary things. Then Naomi asked, "Why did you never remarry?" "Because I was angry with you." Naomi almost smiled. Do-jun explained that anger had been easier than admitting he still loved her. Then he found her and learned she had never stopped loving him. It made him feel 4 years had been lost for nothing. They weren't for nothing. Mina had existed inside those years. She had been loved, safe, and happy. The years were painful, but they were not empty. Naomi reached across the table and took his hand. She could not become the woman she had been before. She could not promise never to be afraid again. But she was tired of letting the worst thing that happened to them decide everything that came after it. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you can come back tomorrow." Do-jun almost laughed. "That's all?" "For now." So he came back the next day, and the day after that. There was no immediate second wedding, no sudden return to the mansion. There was something better. Time. A year after the elevator doors opened, Do-jun came home early. Not to his enormous empty house, to Naomi's apartment. Mina ran toward him with a drawing. 3 people inside a house. "That's us." Do-jun looked at Naomi. A new ring was on her finger. Not the old one. The first belonged to a marriage they could not return to. This one belonged to the life they were choosing now. Do-jun looked at Mina's drawing. The tall figure was blue. "Why am I always blue?" because that was the first crayon I gave you. Do-jun could not speak. Naomi sat beside them. Mina moved between her parents and took one hand from each. 4 years earlier, Naomi had disappeared with one suitcase and a secret. Do-jun believed he had lost everything. He had been wrong. The most important things in his life had been waiting for him. A little girl with his eyes, a woman who survived long enough to come home, and a second chance neither expected. For years, Do-jun had lived alone in a house designed for 12 people. Now he sat on the floor of a small apartment, surrounded by crayons, toys, and the two people he once thought he had lost forever. For the first time in 4 years, Seo Do-jun was no longer lonely. He was home,